Hi and welcome to the Core Finance Master Investor Show. My name is James Faulkner, I'm the Editorial Director of Master Investor magazine and I'm joined by Victor Hill, who's been writing about the aviation sector this month.
Hi James.
Hi Victor. So your piece is entitled The Aviation Revolution.
Yes.
What key themes should investors be aware of in the sector right now?
Well, I'm looking at the aviation universe, which in my view starts with the aero engine manufacturers, and then you have the airframe manufacturers, of which there are two. There is a global duopoly in this business between Airbus, effectively, and Boeing. And then we have the airlines themselves, who are using these new engine and airframe products in creative ways in order to offer us, the final customer, new possibilities in travel. And in particular, I'm looking at the super long-haul operators, of which Qantas is a case in point.
Okay. And Warren Buffett famously spent decades avoiding the airline sector. He's recently invested billions of dollars into it. Why the change of tune?
Well, it's interesting. In February, Buffett announced that he was putting $10 billion into the four major US carriers. That's Delta, American, United, and Southeastern. And he's doing this because he thinks that the sector has turned a corner. He thinks that the first century of air travel was blighted by bankruptcies and various financial catastrophes. But now this is a mature industry which has a very secure cash flow. And for those who are operating effectively in this sector, the future is bright. Now, in the case of, for example, Qantas and others who are using these Dreamliner and A380 long-haul aircraft, they're able to open up long-range routes for the first time, such as UK-Australia non-stop. So did you know, James, hitherto, what was the longest route in operation?
I should do, given that I've read the article, but it's slipped my mind.
Well, until now, the longest flight that you can take non-stop is from Dubai to Auckland in New Zealand,
right, on
Emirates, and that's a flight of some 16 hours and 30 minutes. There are also a couple of other super long-haul routes. There's Sydney-Dallas, which is currently operated by Qantas. That's 15.5 hours. The new route from London Heathrow to Perth in Australia, operated by Qantas from March 25th next year, that's 14,500 kilometres, will take approximately 17 hours.
Wow.
But these aircraft have been configured in a highly ergonomic way, and we are assured by Qantas that with 238 passengers, it's going to be a comfortable ride despite the long duration.
Right, and these ultra long haul flights are only made possible by the advances in technology. Can you give us some insight into that?
Well, first of all, you have advances in engine technology. In particular, Qantas's Dreamliners, this is the Boeing 787, are being powered by two General Electric GenX engines, which have revolutionary new fan blades. In fact, there are only 18 blades on each fan, which are constructed of ceramic materials and carbon fibers. So these engines are much lighter and much more fuel efficient. And then you have the airframes themselves, which are also lighter by virtue of advanced materials technology, and also because of certain tricks that airlines are using in terms of stripping out unnecessary weight from the craft. So combination of better engines and better airframes means that you can fly further for longer, and that opens up the possibility of London, Australia non-stop, which cuts out a lot of the so-called super connectors of the likes of, for example, Emirates and Qatar Airways and Etihad, who are based on a spoke and hub principle for transcontinental travel.
Right, so can you give us a few examples of the airline stocks that you've been looking at in the article?
Yes, I do like Qantas very much. It's a really superb airline. It's got a fabulous route network. Of course, it's centred on Australia, where it is the national carrier. Its share price is currently trading at a 5-year high, so it's not a bargain stock, but it does pay a trailing dividend of about 1.3%. Australia has a very robust economy. It's had 80 consecutive quarters of growth. One of the few Western countries to have avoided the credit crunch. So that's one to look at. I'm also interested in some of the newcomers in terms of the budget airline sector. Obviously, the established players like EasyJet and Ryanair, which are Europe-focused, probably are core holdings in any diversified equity portfolio. They've been around for more than 25 years in this jockeying for position. They are both still growing, and they both have a very bright outlook, both strong performers. EasyJet shares, I would say, are in recovery mode after a setback last year. And then I've identified 5 budget airlines which appear to be extremely well positioned. These are regional still, but 2 of them are in fact looking at opening up long haul or super long haul destinations. So, for example, I could mention WestJet of Canada, which has hubs in Toronto, Calgary, and Vancouver. They're focusing mostly on the Caribbean and on the US and on Mexico, but increasingly they're looking to Asia. And they've just put in an order for 10 new Dreamliners with Boeing, which will be used on a Toronto-Beijing super long-haul route. That's one interesting element. By the way, they're quite innovative. They stripped out all of the seat-back video screens from their aircraft. So when you fly with them, you plug in your smartphone or your tablet to their system, and you watch your film in flight with that.
Yeah.
And the result is that
sounds like the way forward.
They've reduced the aircraft weight by 660 kilograms, which means more efficiency in terms of fuel utilization. Pegasus of Turkey is an interesting one, with 40 domestic routes within Turkey and 60 international routes. Wizz Air, Hungarian airline, listed in London, extremely strong earnings record, and quite a few others in this sector to look out for, including Norwegian, which is taking up 36 slots per day, starting later this year from Gatwick. So a very economical way to cross the Atlantic. They were offering fares from Edinburgh to New York last year for £56.
Okay. And what about the engine manufacturers? Because Rolls-Royce has had a bit of a tough time of late, hasn't it? But the shares are starting to recover.
Well, they are in recovery mode. I mean, Rolls-Royce was hit by a whole concatenation of adverse circumstances last year. But the fact remains that they are one of the top 2 leading aero engine manufacturers globally. And the production technology is improving. They're looking at innovating with such things as using 3D printing to generate the fan blades inside these engines. And that would mean that you can actually dispense with rivets and fasteners, which are quite heavy things, and possibly even reduce the engine weights by a further 20%. Okay. So brilliant technology and a huge market going forward. You know, the total airline fleet is going to double from its current level of 40,000 aircraft to something like 80,000 aircraft, airliners in operation in the next 25, 30 years.
Wow. So can you just give us a brief overview of what you'll be writing about next month, Victor?
Well, James, next month I'm really tackling a very big and very controversial and very profound problem, which is that of climate change and how we respond to it, and in particular the future of renewable energy and whether it actually is going to make a return for investors in the current climate of needing to reduce our carbon emissions. It's a massive topic. I'm not a climate expert, but I've learned a great deal by researching it. I have hopefully a few hints as to how things might work out.
Good stuff, and we'll be looking out for that one next month. You can read all Victor's articles for free on masterinvestor.co.uk. We'll be back next month. Thanks for watching.